Morning, and the one-day public participation forum on amendments to Sectional Properties Act is underway at the Kenya Bankers Association SACCO building. Lands Cabinet Administrative Secretary Gideon Mung'aro has just finished briefing the media over the same. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Stakeholders to try to look into the sessional paper on operational of Land Properties Act. You have realized that this act was enacted in 1987. It became operational in 1990, but there are still many gaps, and that's why we have this forum. The ministry stakeholders committee will be going around. The Ministers' Committee will be going around to Kisumu, Eldoret, Mombasa. By May, we should be now sitting down to finalize the document. The issue we are facing in this Properties Act, you are all aware. Today, as young people of Kenya, when you just finish school and you take a loan and buy an apartment, you are given a sublease by the landlord. Yeah? But in many cases, you will see that the same landowners who have given you a sublease, they use the mother title to go and take a loan from the bank. So I think we, as a ministry, we feel that we need to have, when you buy an apartment, you should get a title deed for your apartment. Yeah? You realize that as a young person, when you take a loan now at your age, yeah, you have very little money left to do other things. So I think you should have the right, when you have invested on an apartment, to also be able to use your title, to use it as a collateral in a financial institution, so that you can get money to do business, to do many other things, or use it to buy another property. But if you get last sublease, you realize that you can go far. Sometimes you go to the banks and you find out that in the sublease you have, the owner of the apartment have used the mother title to take a mortgage again from your property. So that's why we feel they must look into it, and that's why you have seen the interest there with land estate agents and lawyers. I think it's going to be interesting forum. We should stay behind. And
now, what is the ideal case scenario in understanding and applying these laws? For instance, if there is a mother title and then people have bought, let's say, apartments, what should be the ideal case scenario? Should the mother title be cancelled in favor of these other sectional properties?
No, I don't think it's a matter of cancellation. It's the same way you buy land and subdivide it. When you subdivide land, each parcel after subdivision gets its own titles. Then the mother title basically it's closed. So it should be the same with the apartments. That once the apartments are all sold, the individual owners of the apartment should have different titles, and then the mother title is closed. But if you give subleases and keep the mother title, that's why people are still using the same. And you can imagine, you have all paid for all these apartments here, 50, 30 apartments, for 30 million each. If the bank comes to value, because you have the mother title, somebody goes away with billions to do another investment, while the people who have paid the money and they're staying in the apartments, sometimes are also at risk of being mortgaged again with the mother title by the owner of the estate. That's why we want this thing to be looked into. And as you are aware, the government agenda of the Big Four, housing is also one of the Big Four agendas of the Jubilee government. And we want also to align this, yeah? Because housing now is not like in the past where it was not in the new constitution, the 2010 constitution. Housing is part of the constitutional mandate of the government to provide housing to the community. At the moment, we have a deficit of 1,850,000 deficit on housing. to Kenyans. So this law will go a long way on addressing all these issues.
All right, and we now want to cross over and speak with our reporter, Mark Namaswa, who is following up on this story. Good morning to you, Mark Namaswa. This is on that event on the amendments of the Sectional Properties Act, which is underway, and Mark Namaswa is joining us now from Arthi House. What more can you tell us, Mark?
Now, the Sectional Properties Act is concerned about, let's say, if you buy a building, the building originally sits on a piece of land, and that piece of land had the mother title. But if you buy a section of a building, let's say an apartment, you buy one apartment, and you are several of you, like let's say 30. What happens to you? It means that you need to claim a section of that piece of land. But that cannot be possible. Let's say if a building has, let's say, 30 stories, you cannot claim a piece of land. So that is where the Sectional Properties Act comes into place. It means that the mother title will be surrendered and then annulled, and what happens is that every person who has bought a building in that, who has bought an apartment in that building, will claim ownership of that land because there will be that sectional title. So this comes in the wake of the country. Land pressure continues to pile in Kenya. Looking at cities like Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, people are putting up apartments. Major real estate developers are looking into tapping to apartment development. And what happens is that people buy sections of houses. Let's say you buy a 2-bedroom apartment for 10 million and there are 30 of you. So what happens is that the mother title is annulled, and then each one of you is given a subtitle so that you can claim ownership of that property. Now, what happens in a country like Kenya? For instance, in 1987, the Sectional Properties Act came into being. But all that time up to now, what has happened is that most people are not aware about this particular act. And what has happened is that this particular forum is part of the domestication of this particular law, so that people get more aware concerning their rights when they are buying parts of properties or apartments, and what happens to the mother title. For instance, real estate developers have been accused by some quarters for selling apartments, but still going back and taking hold of the mother title and using it to secure other loans. And what happens is that these new apartment owners are faced with auctioneers or banks coming to claim back their loans, and they don't really know where to head to. So this is part of the government's plan to empower people concerning their knowledge of laws, of land laws, and what happens and what rights do they have when they buy a piece of property, which is, let's say, in an apartment, and they don't necessarily have to have the tangible land at their feet, but still have a claim to that piece of property. Now, when you look back at Swahili folklore, we have that story of Abu Nwasi. The guy sold someone an apartment on top of his, so he was on the ground floor. Then one day he decided, okay, I'm going to evict this guy. And then he told that guy, now that your house is on top of mine, I'm going to demolish mine, you get hold of yours. And the story goes on to illustrate the agony of that apartment buyer. So this Sectional Properties Act and the forum that is going on at this particular venue concerns enlightening buyers of properties, even as the country continues to have accumulative pressure on land, especially in major cities. And according to what we've been told here by the Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Lands, is that this is the direction that the country is going. The global atmosphere concerning properties is all heading towards sectional property ownership. And we are going to look like Hong Kong, New York, and other major cities where people will be buying sections of apartments and not only just buying properties that sit on physical land. We'll be buying houses that are on the 30th floor, 20th floor, but we still have to know how to go about claiming or having the paperwork in place concerning what we actually own. Back to you.
Right, Mark. And before I let you go, you've made a very interesting allusion to that story of Abu Nwasi. And of course, like you said, many people are really not aware about this and how to go about it. And I imagine that's the reason why this is an open day to have this public participation. participation. What's the turnout, and what kind of people have we seen attending it, and the kind of engagement so far?
Now, property usually brings on board several professionals. We have business people that participate in the real estate development. We have the architects and property developers. We also have buyers of apartments. We also have bankers who provide loans that fund this real estate development. We also have lawyers who act as go-betweens in these transactions and also make sure that all the paperwork is in place. And then we also have Ministry of Lands officials who, of course, look into the titles, their processing, whether they are they have what we call, the term has escaped me, but we have also Ministry of Lands officials who take a look into properties and their titles to ensure that the real owners are the ones who are in their possession. So it's an amalgamation of people from across the board, business people, buyers, bankers, as well as experts in land buying,
right.
as well as those ones who sell land, among other people.
Oh, okay, Mark. Thank you so much. Mark Namaswa just giving us updates about that open day, talking about amendments of Sectional Properties Act that is being organized by the Ministry of Land.